Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to this incredible live. It's a collaboration between Frequency and Pudgy Penguins. I'm Alex Vicente from Frequency, and we're here today because both of our communities understand something that most people don't. True ownership changes everything about digital communities. We have a super special fireside chat with Luca Netz, founder of Pudgy Penguins, and Sheila Warren, who runs strategy and operations at Project Liberty, as well as heading up the Project Liberty Institute. We're going to talk about how to build the infrastructure for the next generation of social platforms. Before we dive in, there's also a very special giveaway. So anyone tuning in now, I'll recap all the instructions and rules later, but we're giving away a little Pudgy NFT worth around $2,500 today. This is the little Pudgy. So cute, a baby NFT. We love it. Here's what you need to do. You need to follow Frequency's X account, follow Pudgy Penguins X account, retweet this space announcement, join the Frequency Discord, stay present during this because we're doing the giveaway at the very end, and ask questions in the comments to increase your chances. So before I bring in our two guest speakers, Sheila Warren, she's an OG in the crypto space, someone I admire and respect deeply, a visible pioneer in Web3 who now leads PLI and strategy ops at Project Liberty. Sheila, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce Luca.
Thanks, Alex. It's so great to see you and to be here. Look, I know why we're all here, and it's not just for the little Pudgy. It's also to just really learn at the foot of one of the greats, right? So it's been a tough time for crypto in many ways. I think we all know that. So it was particularly amazing and inspiring to me, and I know to everyone here, to see a blue penguin ringing the bell at NASDAQ, to see SIBO filing for an ETF, the Pengu ETF. These are just major milestone firsts, and part of why I think we're so excited to be collaborating with Pudgy Penguins. So want to bring in the guy who made it all happen. Luca, come on up. For anyone who doesn't know the incredible journey you've been on with Pudgy Penguins, can you just give us a real quick intro and what you think this moment means for both the project, but also just for the broader industry?
Yeah, so 3 years ago, we bought Pudgy Penguins for $2.5 million. I was a disgruntled community member, and at no fault of the previous founders, but they were 18 and 19-year-olds in their college dorm basement with no operational experience at the time. And so rather than just complaining like most people who are in projects that seem to be dying do, I decided to step up to the plate and put my money where my mouth is. Our goal when we bought Pudgy was really twofold. How do we become the face of penguins around the world? And how do we become the mascot for crypto? I think over the last 3 years, we've really represented the industry, I think, the best in terms of crypto native IP. We've subsequently become the biggest crypto native character within the space. We've also been able to penetrate mass through Walmart, Target, and about 10,000 other retail stores around the world through our toy line. And I think over the next couple of years, starting really this year, we're going to take some big swings at bat to become a franchise. Naturally, I think one of the things that we have kind of evolved into is adding Pengu and the token into the mix. I think what we've been able to kind of do on the NFT side is really lead and show people what NFTs can do. And I think this next chapter is really going to be around bringing the brand and turning it into a global phenomenon, but also really setting the tone for what meme coins can do and what meme coins can ultimately become. I think when you look at meme coins, they're super lackadaisical in their nature in terms of, the effort behind them, I think doesn't yield the opportunity that they've been able to garner over the last couple of years and specifically the last year. And so this idea that like meme coins have a responsibility to, one, I think become a franchise, two, become a global IP, but also really be progressive in how they build. Typically meme coins and the narrative around them is they don't do anything. Right. And that's a good thing. So people have tried to tie up the retail audience into thinking. And I actually think it's a bad thing. I think when you have these huge valuations, it yields a huge opportunity to push the space forward. And that's really our goal at Pudgy Penguins and at Pengu is how do we set the bar for what these brands and these IPs can become? You mentioned recently in the last week, we rung the bell at NASDAQ with our friends over at Van Eck. We got the CBOE to pick up the ETFs. We had filed it a couple months ago, but for those who are not familiar, the CBOE picking up the Penguin ETF is a huge milestone, I think, for memes. I quoted it as probably the biggest moment for memes of this year, and maybe I think probably the last 2 years. Because if you look at the tokens that CBOE picks up, they're all worth $5-10 billion, but they're also the biggest and best tokens in crypto. And so it's, our goal, and what I hope to do is I hope to lead and inspire others to take this progressive approach and really trying to leverage what I think only meme coins and NFTs can do, which is really invade the hearts and minds of everyday people, and really try to push the boundaries of what these things can become. So, so far so good. It's been a wild last couple of years. Every year I seem to think that we get, bigger and better, and we keep making more strides in the right direction. But that's a brief little synopsis of how we got here and what we're doing up until this point.
Yeah, look, there's so much to unpack there. I want to kind of start though with maybe a philosophical question, right? Yeah. So you said the origin story for you, here was as a disgruntled community member, you were like, this could be better, it could be more. You're dissatisfied. I'm making assumptions here. Dissatisfied with the direction of travel, right? And you were like, this thing is actually really awesome. There was something about the community, because yes, the penguins are adorable, they're amazing, they're pudgy, obviously, but like there's something about the community itself that I think you felt was important. And so it's something that's been interesting to us, because I think where we're really values aligned, both here at Project Liberty and with how you think about this, is this idea that you're putting community first and you're really driving ownership. So can you just say more about that, and how that kind of led you into the role you're in now and to kind of take over here and do this thing, but also like what that's meant and how it manifests in your approach?
Yeah. There was two things when I was buying Pudgy that I believed in. I believed that the Pudgy Penguin silhouette and character was magical, and the brand name was magical. Pudgy Penguins paired with that cute penguin. I just saw the $1 billion opportunity. And the second one is I knew that the community was bar none. And so I think community is important because at the end of the day, humans are tribalistic creatures. Like, we want to be a part of a family. We want to be a part of something awesome. And community plays a huge part in that, because when you join the Pudgy Penguin community, you're really, I think, joining one of the most inclusive and diverse group communities within crypto, but also one of the most affluent and cool communities at the same time. So, we've got some of the coolest women a part of the community, some of the coolest guys, some of the most important guys and gals within crypto a part of the community. 5-year-olds love the Pudgy Penguin. 60-year-olds love the Pudgy Penguin. People in Asia love the Pudgy Penguin. Men, women in America love the Pudgy Penguin. And so it really creates this super diverse group that I think is really hard to find anywhere else, and has been a huge part for our momentum up until this point. I think I've done a pretty good job, and it's probably one of my superpowers, in just cultivating and just being honest with these guys. I think us buying the project really set the tone. If you kind of look at a lot of projects within crypto, the relationship between team and community has really been one of taking, and maybe reciprocating that taking, but a lot of people, I think, have taken, and I think that gives the community a little bit of a sour taste in their mouth. I think a really interesting perspective here, when you look at Pudgy Penguins and Pengu and our relationship with our community, is we're in the same boat as them, right? We put $2.5 million to be here. We're in the hole. Very few holders have put more money on the line than I have, right? And so there's this mutual respect that I think is super important. And when you have a mutual respect, I think that really sets the tone for a mutually beneficial relationship, where you can be honest, you can be, forward in how you were thinking of things, both the good and the bad. And I think that's kind of given us an edge over these last couple of years, in the sense that, even today, we could have made hundreds of millions of dollars taking from them after kind of hitting certain milestones, either on floor price or tokens or things like that. And I just refuse to have that relationship with our community. Ultimately, I'm here to, make a really great company and a really great IP that tens of millions of people know and love. They understand how that accrues value back to their assets. And it seems like we're all aligned on this mission to make this penguin the most popular penguin, and crypto's mascot, which ultimately I think we've become, in my opinion, the face of crypto already. So I think we've achieved that goal. Obviously, we're going to hold that standing. I think it'll be easy for us to hold it over the course of the next couple of years, based on what I know. But still a long ways to go, at least in the real world. We still haven't, broken through to hundreds of millions of people knowing and loving Pudgy Penguins. I think they've seen the silhouette. The data kind of supports that. A lot of people around the world have seen the penguin. Now it's about making the tie that penguin is a Pudgy Penguin, and really creating that love and rapport. But at the end of the day, community is the backbone of crypto. Really, my advice and my stance on it is treat people how you want to be treated. At the end of the day, my community knows that I'm in the same bucket as them. And as long as I'm in the same bucket, I think we have that mutual respect, and we'll keep fighting until the wheels fall off.
Yeah. So landing identity, that you are not just managing a community or your team, right? And you're not just creating a community that's distant from you, but that you started off as part of the community. You're still part of the community. And to your point about skin in the game, that creates, I think what we've seen here, and look, the NFT space and crypto in general, there's tribalism for sure, right? There are very loyal folks in all kinds of communities, right? Rocks, ladies, whatever it is, right? All kinds of different folks. Anyone who's been on X kind of understands that. But there's really unprecedented, I would say, loyalty with the Penguins, like for sure. There's just, and to your point about just breadth of engagement model, I think that's really, really powerful and something that's very easy to grok very easily when you walk into the space. But also I think there's this sense from the community that they're co-creating alongside the team. So can you say a little bit about the IP licensing? Like how has that helped and how does that tie into your approach to community?
That was our really big secret and a secret weapon for us. And we didn't really anticipate it at the time, but I think one of my pitches early on was like, look, if this becomes a multi-billion-dollar brand, you guys will accrue value, right? When the NFTs were the only thing in the ecosystem. And the logic was simple. I was like, at the end of the day, the wheel for accruing value to collectibles in general has already been done 20 times over, right? Like look no further than Pokemon and first edition Charizards and all the other great IPs with, collectibles that are selling for millions of dollars. But it starts with having a brand that hundreds of millions of people know and love, right? Starts and stops there. Whether it's digital or physical, value accrues. I would actually argue value accrues a lot more significantly to digital because of just the ease, the accessibility and the liquidity, et cetera. But I told them, I was like, look, like our goal is to build a brand that hundreds of millions of people know and love, and the rest will work itself out. And so just trust this process. And I think from our perspective, that has kind of been our drive in terms of how we've kind of looked at things and how I told them, it would work out. And subsequently it's worked out that way. But I think the Web 2 and the Web 3 relationship is way more synonymous than people think, because even the Web 2 stuff, right? Like, people will ask me all the time, well, like, are people buying the token from the toys and the NFTs? And I'm like, look, you're totally misinterpreting what these toys are. These toys are, one, a revenue driver so that we don't need to take away from our community. But two, and most importantly, it proliferates the Penguin. When the Penguins proliferated, it's not about necessarily a net new user coming in, but if you're a crypto whale at an institution and you go to a bar mitzvah or Christmas or whatever it may be, and you see your niece or your nephew or a friend or a family member gifting that a person a Pudgy Penguin toy, it's pretty clear that, this IP and this character is so much more transcendent than pretty much anything else in crypto. The only things that come close that might have a slight edge today is probably Doge, maybe Pepe. But other than that, like nothing else is even remotely close in terms of the impressions and at least, and especially net new, right? Like Doge in totality probably has more views and impressions and, mind share than Penguins. I'm not going to argue that, but net new impressions and mind share, we are eons ahead of everyone else. And it's because of, I think, this strategy of, hey, like, let's create physical products that are present for people and things like that. So I think the whole idea with them when I first kind of started talking to the community was really around this idea that we were going to build $1 billion brand and then the rest would kind of translate. But a huge part of that was this licensing vertical. So, I was thinking about it at the time. I was like, well, build $1 billion brand. Let me try to tie the two together a little more methodically. Mm-hmm. I thought to myself, well, these physical products, these things that we're going to be making, they require penguins. So rather than creating net new penguins, right? Let's take the holders penguins and let's license them and give them a royalty in perpetuity. So every toy that you see in Walmart and Target is actually a licensed penguin from a holder. That penguin is licensed via our licensing platform called Overpass. And every time one of those penguins sells, it accrues into some sort of balance that gets paid out annually, to the holders of those penguins. And it basically tells an interesting story, which is hey, not only can you collect these first editions and have these collectibles that are the nucleus of these ecosystems, this ecosystem, but you can actually take these penguins into the real world. We can alchemize them, and you have a chance to actually, create an emotional layer of utility that I think has never been done before. On its face, it seems simple, and some people are like, oh, that's cool for maybe the 50 people. But what it actually is actually the reinvention of the IP business, because the IP business today is very transactional. It's consumer and it's brand, right? with Pudgy Penguins, there's actually a new relationship. It's 3 tiers. It's brand, participant, and then consumer, right? So the first edition collectors, the guys that are the nucleus of our ecosystem, they have the ability to be a participant in the brand, whether it's in the brand lore, whether it's their penguin being alchemized and coming to life. And that was a really interesting kind of pivot. Now, we recently did Pengu because we kind of realized that we didn't have a main character, and it was actually a little bit of a problem within the Web2 brand. And we were like, oh, we need a main character. But we're like, well, like we want our community to have a piece of the main character, which then led us to doing the 8th biggest airdrop of all time, which 25% of the Pengu supply, it's basically like the fractionalized main character of the Pudgy Penguins ecosystem. 25% of that went to the existing holder base, and the other 25% went to 6 million eligible wallets, which again, we're crypto's mascot, right? So we just can't be for Pudgy Penguins, right? Like we're for everyone. And we really just gave basically everyone in crypto a piece of this main character and ultimately a piece of what I think is crypto's mascot in the face of crypto, which I think is just like, it's yet to be seen, but I'm a very firm believer that we are doing everything the right way. We are doing things for the people, by the people, and ultimately that value will reciprocate in a very meaningful way, in a way that I think crypto's never seen before. But that's a little bit of clarity in terms of like how we've gotten here and how the licensing and all that kind of ties in.
No, it's fascinating because I think what I'm really, the through line there, right? If I boil it down, is like in every kind of market or every offering you put out there, there's been an authenticity to the audience, right? So you're not trying to get the 6-year-old who wants the toy to be like holding the token. You know, you're not trying to like shoehorn the things together. You're saying there's a natural flow. And I think one thing that crypto struggled with is how do you mainstream it? Like, how do you build a mainstream bridge? How do you approach traditional markets? Like, how do you do all of that? And I think what makes this so compelling is that you almost simultaneously, I mean, not from the origin story, but simultaneously at some point, you had these parallel paths. You had like the gift, you had the toy line, you had the all these different, the real world manifestation, as you say, the emotional tug and pull, the character, like all those things were kind of product lines, if you will, that you put out there very authentically to a certain target, but they're all connected, of course. So that's what I find really powerful about this. And it sounds like, I think where a lot of projects have maybe not been as successful is because they're always trying to drive only one driver versus this broader brand awareness that you're talking about. But that's really interesting. It also like that leads to the question I think about franchising, which I'd love to get into a bit with you, which is how you're thinking about this kind of next phase and what that means. So if you think about like audience there, you think about what a normal franchise model is trying to attract or do, like how are you seeing that play into your existing current strategy?
So there's an anomaly to this. There's like 2 or 3 anomalies, but basically remove the anomalies aside. There's 3 ways you become a franchise: a movie, a TV show, and a game that break through in a really meaningful way. Because they're very easily, those 3 digital mediums are very easy to scale relatively. An anomaly would be like Hello Kitty achieved that with none of the 3, right? But they had a robust, they owned the factory in China. And so they actually had an insane consumer product scaling strategy where they like basically made 1,000 SKUs of 1,000 different items and really were able to own every part of your life. Only really possible if you're either, you know, boots on the ground local in China or you own a factory, right? Like those are the only 2 ways you can get there. So I won't, you know, there is a product strategy to that.
But you're saying you're not Sanrio, so given that you're not,
I'm not Sanrio. So you know, you'll see us take a swing at all 3, right? Over the next couple of years, there will be a Pudgy Penguins movie, there will be a Pudgy Penguins TV show, and there will be multiple Pudgy Penguins gaming properties. I think the gaming properties are the only ones that we can take multiple swings at bat. The movie is like the movie's either going to stick or it's not. The TV show, it's either going to stick or it's not. The game, you're going to see us take like 3 to 4 real swings at this. First one, you're going to see August 29th in Pudgy Party, which is our debut, you know, mobile game, which I think is franchise ready to be, you know, a breakthrough mobile game, if we can make it stick. So those are the 3 swings, and you'll see us take a swing at all 3, and maybe, you know, a couple games. So, you know, maybe 5 real swings for a home run over the next, you know, 2.5, 3 years, I'd probably say.
Okay, it's so interesting because of course that all depends, and the lever what you're leveraging is awareness of that main character, but awareness of the broader character the development that you have across all of this, and then as people start to anthropomorphize these penguins through how they show up right in a movie and how they interact with each other, you're going to develop this entirely different stream, right, that you can have where people are going to be like subdividing almost within the community. Like I'm this character, I'm that character. I think in this way, I think in that way. I assign personality characteristics that I feel I have identify with this particular version of the penguin, right? Like all of that I think is really, really powerful. And again, that gets back to this authenticity and this really authentic engagement, that we see in this project that we don't see, I would say, most places on the web. Forget crypto. I think you don't really see this anywhere on the web, even in social media or anywhere else. So I find that really interesting. And I'm curious if you are seeing that kind of spillover effect. Look, I mean, my view, strong communities are built by empowered users, and any company or platform is like leveraging those users and basically leveraging that community and turning it into something, right? That's basically, I think, the best way to do this. Are you seeing spillover either into other projects or into other crypto, non-crypto, et cetera? Are you observing that? And do you see a through line there?
Yeah, I think the spillover that at least we see based off our success is like, I think a lot of people follow in our footsteps. And so I like this though. Like I'm inspired by this and I want more of it because I think it's only a net positive for the space. Why I think actually Pudgy Penguins' long-term success is so important is because crypto is a very follow leader industry. So if we're the number one NFT, if we're the number one meme coin, it's only going to, I think, be net super healthy, I think, for those two categories, because people will just do what we're doing, which I think is, providing value to our community, not taking money from them and breaking through into mass and making crypto less taboo and less intimidating. So I think everyone should be rooting for Pudgy Penguins and Pengu for the sole sake that, like, if we are the leader and we are number one, it's only going to put a fire under the ass of all the people who are competing with us, which is only going to bring net new users because our whole strategy is bringing net new users. And so crypto is interesting in that respect. Yeah. So I think from our perspective, we are very much trying our best to succeed, to hopefully lead the charge. So yeah.
Well, speaking of net new, we have a ton, I know, of net new viewers. So I'm going to turn to Alex for a minute to give everyone information about the giveaway. Alex.
Yeah, we have a ton of action on YouTube and X, which is a testament to Sheila and Luca being really entertaining and amazing. But to highlight again, Frequency is giving away one Lil Pudgy NFT. This is it. It is actually about to hit 3K in value. So during the course of this conversation, it has actually gone up. Ownership is obviously such a huge part of both Pudgy's ecosystem and Frequency's. And that's part of the reason why we're super excited about having this conversation. So you have about like 15 minutes left before we do the drawing. And one person wins this Lil Pudgy. Follow all the instructions. Follow us on Frequency. We have a pinned post at the top of our page, which tells you all the rules to apply. Okay, back to you.
Thanks, Alex. Can't wait to see who gets that Pudgy. I'm very jealous it can't be me because I think I'm ineligible, unfortunately. Would love to add to my collection. So Luca, something we talk a lot about here at Project Liberty is really what socials would look like and what the web would look like if users really own their presence and their data. And part of what we're working on in our tech stack is the ability to basically take your graph and port from place to place really seamlessly so that you can leverage your audience is you. It's not like you on X or you on Blue Sky or you on whatever, you on Truth. It's like just you, and your audience can follow you from place to place. And part of what I think NFTs in general, but Penguins in specifically have really done is, again, emphasize that ownership is really at the core of all of this. So I'm curious, like, given that you have such emphasis on ownership and on your community, how do you think about partnerships? Like, how do you think about other projects, and how do you think about, like, because you don't want to like dilute your brand, you want to amplify, like you must be very strategic and careful about that, I would think, and very cautious. So talk to us about your partnership strategy in general.
Yeah, we're pretty collaborative. I think with all collaborations, I look at it through one lens, and I tell this to all our partners, like, is this collaboration mutually beneficial? So if I collab with some small NFT project, I don't know how that's mutually beneficial, right? I'm helping you 100 times more than you're helping me. I'm not in the business of non-mutually beneficial relationships. So I tell this to anybody, right? If we want to partner together, I think what Pudgy Penguins does well is there's actually like you could look at, the Van X stuff, right? Or Walmart. Like one pitch that we tell Web2 guys is, of Walmart's most 10 top viral posts, 2 of them are Pudgy Penguins, right? On X in terms of engagement, right? If you look at Van Eck bell ringing, like Van Eck would have crushed it ringing the bell, by themselves, totally, right? You put a Pudgy Penguin mascot in there, you get 10 million more views, right? So it's really about just exposure. And like, that's what I think we bring to the table. We bring eyeballs, we bring exposure, we bring community. And, I like that's been our edge. And so, I'm willing to collab with anyone and everyone if you can convince me that the relationship is mutually beneficial, right? So I'm open to everything. If it makes sense for the brand, if it makes sense for the community, I want to provide value to the community. But the kicker above, for anybody listening that potentially wants to partner with Pudgy Penguins is, don't bring us a pitch that's not mutually beneficial. And I think, a lot of people want the crypto native eyeballs. I think we have, the best data to support that we can get net more impressions than pretty much anyone else in crypto. And so if you want that, then more than happy to collaborate with anyone and everyone. I think it just comes down to it making sense and being mutually beneficial. And so, any collab that you see us do, just know that's probably passed our sniff test in terms of mutually beneficial. And as long as it's mutually beneficial, we're ready to rock.
Yeah. Well, I think, I used to talk a lot back in like the early aughts just about this idea that we're moving from digital nativity to crypto nativity. And this idea that ownership is central, that you're more empowered as a user, you're part of a community, and that all matters. And it was very confusing, I think, for people at that time from traditional industries, especially TradFi specifically, to understand that the community was part of what people wanted to feel ownership of. Right? That it wasn't just like, I own a thing and then I take it and go away and it's very zero sum. It's like the value of the thing requires all of us to put effort in together. And I think that's the partnership model you're describing, is like, how are we all working together and how are you creating mutually beneficial partnerships that are raising everything? And I love how all throughout our conversation, you've been flagging that this isn't just about Pudgy Penguins. It's about crypto in general, because crypto, it's a complicated industry. There's a lot of misunderstanding from people outside the industry about what the industry is. And having, I think, this mascot, your word, I would say like almost friendly gatekeeper in a way that says it doesn't have to be scary or crazy or weird or even unfamiliar. There are all these different modalities of engagement, some of which are very, very form factor familiar to all kinds of people, to your point about the 6-year-old and the 80-year-old or whatever, right? I think that's really, really powerful. So question then, I guess, is like, look, clearly this is a very successful project, no question about it. Are there lessons learned you want to share with folks? Is there anything that you're like, hey, would have done this differently, or didn't think about this, or I don't know, whatever it is?
Yeah, I think that the lesson is the best. I've been saying this for years, or at least since we've had success. It's just like, building in crypto is very interesting in the sense that, like, you've got to understand that if you want to succeed, now there's contrarians to this, but you either got to build a phenomenal product, right, that has such an edge case that people are forced to use, in which you could probably not have this relationship, though I think having this relationship, no matter what, is still a net positive, which is like, you are the muscle that is the brain, that is the community. This is just as much their company as it is yours. These things are publicly traded startups to a certain extent, at least for the 99% of projects out there. And your startup will gain immense enterprise value and will break through and won't become a startup, like, if you treat your community like you would treat one of your employees or your team members, which is like, everyone's aligned and we're all in this together. And so leverage the hive mind that is the community and understand that, they are not below you. They're at the same level as you are. And if you go into it with that mindset, you'll be rewarded, I think, in a pretty meaningful way.
So humility, basically. Right?
Yeah.
We're all in this together. And that's why I love your origin story. You started off as somebody who was just a person in the community who was like, hey, I want to put my money where my mouth is and not just spout off in the comments, but like actually do something. And here you're doing it. So here's a question that's come through from a bunch of folks over on YouTube, which is there a non-obvious metric or milestone that to you would signal, okay, we've made it. Like, we've really made it now, like the next level beyond sales, beyond floor price and some of those metrics?
Non-obvious, beyond revenue, beyond prices.
Maybe very personal to you, something.
It would be, I'll tell you, it'd be me watching a Pudgy Penguin animated movie in a movie theater. When that day comes, what more can I do? No one can tell me anything at that point. That's it. That is the biggest you can take it. Can't take it bigger than taking your family to an AMC movie theater on a Friday night and watching the Pudgy Penguins animated movie. It's unparalleled. It trumps anything IP or culture related in crypto ever, all time. You can actually put yourself, and you're not in there for like a day. You can finagle like those 1-day screenings, not that, like multi-week, in there the same way they put Django or one of these other movies. You can go there 3 weeks in a row on a Friday night and watch it, which is probably what I would do. If
I love it. Well, I've got 3 little kids who would be super psyched for that.
Yeah, that'll be it.
I'd love it too.
That'll be it. That'll be it for me.
That's awesome. Okay, I got to ask a question because the buzziest thing of all time kind of in tech right now, of course, is AI, whether it's Gen AI or agentic AI. How are you thinking about the impact of artificial intelligence in whatever form factor you want to address it, and how that's going to affect your strategy or the Penguins themselves?
It's changing everything, man. Everything across every part of the stack, from creative to attention spans of users to coding. I mean, I don't think anyone's really going to know what's going to happen here. I will tell you, it's replacing jobs within Pudgy Penguins. It's making jobs easier. It's making people more performant. It's helping with storytelling. I mean, I think we're going to take one crack at consumer-facing AI, see if we can insert ourselves into that narrative, because I just think it's so obvious. But it is crazy. So I could speak a whole hour on this, so I won't. I'll just tell you, it's reshaping our entire business for the better.
Yeah.
But it could reshape it it could reshape the landscape of content in a very interesting way. So thankfully, we have some great AI guys in our circle, and we got our finger on the pulse. That's about it though for now.
It's for sure something we're thinking about a lot too, right? Like, what does a social graph even mean when you've got AI and maybe your followers are machines, they're bots talking to each other. If you have an agent that's kind of giving you a guided tour through the web, what does that mean? What does it look like? And we're in such an inflection point. To your point, it's impossible to predict. And I think like all anybody can do is sort of think through what's the next right thing, to quote like Elsa from Frozen 2, because I have little kids, as I noted, who are waiting for that movie. What do you do? What's the next right thing? And that's kind of the only approach we can take. But yeah, it's helpful to hear that you also, are kind of like, we're going to see, or c'est la vie. Listen, we have so many questions. So, hey, why don't we post some of these here? And we can take them maybe one by one. Oh, here's one. Okay. Oh, that's sweet. Yes. The game. Do you have any more comments you want to make about the game? The first game that's come through, and anything about that? I know you said August is the timing, but any other thoughts?
Yeah, August 29th, go to the App Store and search Pudgy Party, pre-download it. And, our goal, hold me accountable. Like, I'm going for #1 across all apps first week, right? And no company in crypto's ever done that. We've had apps go #1 in the finance category. We've never had #1 go across all categories. That's going to be my big swing. Let's see if we've got it. I think we can do it. I know we can do it. It's if we make it happen. But that's it. I want to make crypto history on that launch week.
Okay. Well, someone asked a question that's kind of related, which is sort of funny. If Pudgy Penguins were a video game boss battle, what's the hardest level you've cleared so far, and what's the final boss? I think you said final boss is the movie. At least that's how I heard it. Or maybe
yeah,
it's like
movie's fine. Movie and movie theaters is final boss. I mean,
yeah. So what's the hardest level so far? What was the toughest thing?
Toughest was executing Walmart in the time that we did, but it's been a while. Oh, no. It was Pengu. No, Pengu was way harder than Walmart. People don't know. We did that whole thing start to finish in 5 weeks.
Okay, people don't know. Say more about that.
Yeah. The whole thing. Trump got elected. My dog died the same day.
Okay.
Heartbreaking. And 2 days later, I said, we're doing Pengu.
And handling grief is a strategy for sure.
Yeah. And in 5 weeks, and the thing is like, it's not just a launch with the listings. Like, do you guys remember the creative assets and the marketing rollout around that thing?
Yeah.
Every year people fade us every quarter 4. every year in Q4, we've shooken up the space and arguably have done the biggest thing in the space for that year, with like the exception of maybe a couple things. Like there was nothing that was more highly impression than Pengu when Pengu released that year. Yeah. Same with Walmart. This year, I expect the same. It's just like that was a gargantuan feat. But the animations, there was a whole cinematic, a 90-second cinematic. How do you even do that in 5 weeks? It's really hard to do. So kudos to these guys. That was for sure. That was the boss. So yeah, that, only game that I played recently, not recently, but like that I remember bosses and levels. So the not off the top of my head was Resident Evil. So like we are, we're not even in the castle. If you've played Resident Evil 4, like we're not even in the castle yet. We've just now conquered the town. And now we're moving and finding the girl in the castle. So, I'm sorry, it probably means nothing to anyone, but it's the only game with a story.
Actually, it means something to me. It's kind of this funny question always that I ask people. It'd be like, yeah, you're an unlikely person to get into crypto as early as I did. And I'm like, well, it's because I was a gamer early on, right? Like an elementary school gamer. And I think there's like, unless you have that sort of ethos, I think you didn't really get it kind of early on. So I always feel like no matter what, there's always going to be a game element to anything, in crypto. Like anything's going to have that. It's a vibe thing more than even like a literal game, but I'm really excited that there's going to be, Pudgy Penguins going to have games and a suite of games. It sounds like not just one. August 29th is the first one, but you're going to have a suite of them probably that roll out after that. I think that's super exciting. The movie, yeah, I love the movie mostly because my kids will be very excited about it and hopefully rewatch, and that's great. But like the game is more for me, right? So I'm kind of psyched about that.
Yeah, it needs to be in a movie in a movie theater. Movie on Netflix, I know I'm gonna be like, that's 100%. Like I know I'm gonna do that.
Movie
right?
in the theater.
Popcorn.
It's the popcorn boss.
Dude, you do that. That's I can't say that's 100% guaranteed. I mean, to my confidence, to the best of my ability. That's just like, dude, you can't beat that. Can't beat that.
Yeah, so awesome. So I think it's so fascinating, right? As the sort of an earlier stage project, I think for me, when I think about Final Boss and any crypto project, like our values are, an ecosystem that's really about user ownership and kind of recasting people's expectations of the internet and like what you can do on the web and really like feeling ownership that's meaningful around their online experience. And that's true in the context of AI. So it's like a really interesting thing to think about how this is all going to evolve over time. Okay.
True Final Boss. So I'll be frank, because I'm metric oriented. Like I would say it's the movie and the theater, because I would assume that would be the thing. Like Pengu has to flip Doge and Pudgy has to just run laps around punks from a price perspective. But you asked me not to do that. So I gave you a more fundamental answer, but a more technical answer would be like, price does matter. I don't pretend it doesn't, just don't. Right? Like our company alignment is there, holder alignment is there, right? So like those two things would be like final, like even with the movie, like if we didn't flip Doge, I couldn't step down. Like there would be no stepping down, right? We flip Doge. What else do you want me to do, man? I ride off into the sunset there, right?
I mean, I'm just going to tell you, if there is not like a dog penguin showdown or like a penguin punk showdown at some point, like as an Easter egg in one of these games or something, I'm going to be really sad now.
Here's the funniest thing. You're going to love this. You ready for this? Nobody knows this, but here's the alpha. I'm giving you a good interview because I think this was a really great conversation. I'll retweet when you guys post this conversation, I'll retweet it. Because I really enjoyed this actually. Sometimes I don't know, right? I don't know.
Well, I appreciate that.
But here's the alpha. I've made an entire music video already. $100,000 I put into it. Animated music video.
Amazing.
Sweet Victory. The song Sweet Victory. It's an old classic rock song.
Yeah.
And it's basically, it only gets released if we flip Doge. But I put $100,000 into it, and it's basically like a whole mimetic cinematic.
Standing is so good.
But you can only post it if you flip Doge. If you don't flip Doge, you look like a real.
I think the call to action is super clear. Super clear for everybody. All right, we've got to see this music video. We've got to see this.
Got to see it. You got a great music video when we flip Doge.
All right, I expect teasers in some of these games, maybe in the movie for those, and people won't know unless they saw this interview. So I'm super psyched about this. Okay, listen, I can't think of a better place to kind of flip over to our giveaway, mostly because that was an awesome way to end. Alex, over to you.
I really wish we had a preview locked and loaded, Luca, of the music video.
No one knows it exists, Alex.
Yeah, they really don't, except for the 8,500 people on here.
Right.
Also, I didn't plug this at the beginning, but I received some penguin merch earlier, and I think they're really sweet little guys.
I'm deeply jealous. Amazing.
Yeah. Well, now that the interview's over, maybe you'll get a box too, Sheila. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in, everyone, both the Pudgy community and the Frequency fam. The conversation was super entertaining, really insightful, and it proves that strong communities, when they come together, a lot of good things happen. So keep an eye on both projects. Make sure you're following both accounts. I'm going to plug Sheila and Luca, which Sheila's is Sheila_Warren, and Luca's is Luca Netz. Follow Frequency and Pudgy Penguins, and keep an eye on both projects. All right, now the moment that everyone has been waiting for, we are going to do the raffle. And Luca, do you want to announce it when the winner comes up?
Yeah. How do you want me to? You want me to say the name when you pull it, or how do you want me to do it?
Yeah. Can you see the screen?
Yeah, I can.
Yep.
Okay. Henry 25. You needed a profile picture upgrade anyway, and you got one. So you got a blurry profile picture, brother, and you need to put the little Pudgy on there. So congratulations, Hen 25.
Congratulations. All right, well, thank you all so much for coming to this week's episode of Making Waves. Really great conversation. Sheila, do you want to close us out? Got any final comments?
Sure. I just want to thank Luca so much for joining us today. This was so interesting and super fun. And I think, look, there's so many lessons that we can learn from projects like this. But my real takeaways and 3 lines here are like authenticity. I mean, they're just things I think are things I'd like to think that everybody orients this way, but like if you aren't, it turns out it's also good business, right? Be authentic, be humble, recognize your community and the value they're bringing you, and that you're part of that community. And if you're doing it right, you're always going to be a critical part of that community, but you can't put yourself on a pedestal above them because you need them to succeed, and we're all in it together. So at no time more than this, both in the crypto industry and in the world at large are these important sentiments. So super psyched. And Luca, thanks for giving us a lot of versions and options of how to do all that. Really appreciate it. And this was good fun.
Yeah. Send me this interview when it's like uploaded in full, and I'll reshare it to my community and Discord and on Twitter and stuff. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks.
And Henry, I will be reaching out to you on X shortly.
We'll find you, Henry. Don't worry. All right.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.